I even heard it within my own family that maybe this was a punishment from God for the things that I did when I was younger. I was very angry at God, with God, because it hurt me deeply. And, to be completely honest with you, I think there's still some anger there. I don't want to be special. I want to be ordinary. And I just want to see my child.
She told me something before we hit record that I told her you must say it on camera. And when she did, it extremely shocked me. I sat down today with my sister to talk about her faith, her son, and the pain that she has been dealing with that most people don't understand and don't talk about. What came out of her mouth at the end, it just blew my mind. Watch the whole video. You'll understand me when you get there.
Well, hello, sister. So, how you doing? You have your water? You ready? Good.
I have my coffee.
Oh, Lord, that famous mug. Okay, so before we jump in, I want to do a small introduction. So my guest today, she is a writer, a content creator, an autism mom, and especially she's my sister. On Instagram, she educates mom on food, nutrition, and everything in between when it comes to raising her child with autism. I will drop her link below in the bio so you can see all her stuff. I'm also going to be dropping some links so y'all can see all the great things that she writes, all her work. But today she is stepping away from the tips and content to get real about something deeper. A faith that has been tested in ways that most people don't talk about. She is not here to pretend that she has it all put together. As a matter of fact, she is here to be honest. And that's exactly why I needed her to be in this seat today. Please welcome Shakyra Bucaram-Sanchez. Yay!
Hello.
Oh, goodness.
Gotta keep up with
sister.
the trend.
Oh, yeah, for sure, right? That's for sure. So before I want to start asking you some things, I know you pretty well. You're my sister, of course, and my older sister, by the way. But I want the audience to know about who Shakyra is. Not the page, the autism mom, but who is Shakyra before, your life pretty much just completely changed?
Okay, so I'm guessing we're starting with the really hard questions.
Yes, we're going to move from slow, which I think is a very easy, to a deeper question. So be ready.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for having me. It's truly an honor to be here and being interviewed by you. And also, I consider myself part of your ministry. I follow you. And not to get ahead of our interview, but I think that my relationship with God has improved ever since you started your channel because, it definitely delivers a lot of messages that hit home. So
Thank you.
in any case, to answer your question, who am I? I think that if you were to strip away all my titles, I don't know I've ever completely known who Shakyra is. So before becoming a mother, I spent a lot of my life trying to be what other people needed me to be. And it may sound like, super heartfelt, but I was raised to be accommodating, okay? And I wanted my parents to love me and to be proud of me. And so there was a version of me with my mom. There's a version of me with my dad. There's a version of me with my siblings and my friends, not because I was being fake. So let me be very clear. But I think I just learned at a very young age to adjust myself for the people that I loved. But then when I became a mother, every molecule in my body just went into my son. My entire world revolves around taking care of him and, giving him a life beyond what other people decided his limitations would be. So now that I am about to turn 45, it is probably for the first time in my life that I'm asking okay, but who am I? And what does Shakira actually want? Like, who is she when she's not trying to make everybody happy? And I think I'm being who I am today, and I realized that some people in my family, don't like her, don't like that new version
Mm.
of her. And strangely enough, I found some peace on that. So I found peace in that, and I think I'm finally starting to meet her. And what I did know about her this entire time is that she does like a really good glass of wine. So
Ooh,
that's
ooh,
me in a
sister.
nutshell.
That is so awesome. The glass of wine for sure. I mean, you just nailed it completely because that is so you. I can picture you being in front of the TV, watching a movie and your glass of wine after putting the baby to sleep and just chilling, right? So that is
Yes.
so you. And I want to ask you, for someone that would jump in into your page, they can see that your window, the whole window of your whole world, right?
Hmm.
Marcel, nutrition, the
Hmm.
autism, and everything. What would you like someone, let's say our viewers go into your page, right? And they
Hmm.
immediately they go click, subscribe and they're looking at everything, which I recommend everyone to go. What do you want them to learn from looking from your page? Either a mom or a dad that is going through the same situation that you are right now.
So I think that the first thing that I want them to learn from my page is that we have more power over our children than the world expects us to believe. You
Mm,
know, and most importantly, I want to give them hope. Okay, that's more than anything, hope. And I know that that's the one word that you hear a lot in all these places, and unfortunately, it is being poisoned by social media, because it's giving the wrong hope. So somebody that comes to my page, I want them to understand that, how can I explain this? That the diagnosis that you were given for your child is not the dead end. There is so
mm,
much you can do. There are really no limitations, and it's really in your mind. Now, I'm not saying that, miraculously your child will wake up one day and he doesn't or she doesn't have autism anymore. But I want them to understand that that power that we have will make such an impact to their lives and their future. I want
yeah,
moms to be able to make better questions, allow themselves to ask questions, to question the system, allow themselves to ask where can they do more? And if they're not happy with the response that they get from their medical team or their circle or their family, go look someplace else. But know that it takes a lot of us, a lot of our work, a lot of our strength, a lot of our commitment to this. And, it's also a partnership. I know that there's a lot of parents out there that are doing this all alone,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
they want a community they can rely on. They want somebody to talk to. I'm
Mm,
here. I understand. I know it's hard, and as is, me and my husband, we split some of the responsibilities when he is home after work, and it's hard. So I can only imagine how it is for other moms. But I want them to understand that, I know that professionals may know a lot of things. They went to school for this, but there is this one joke that I say, and I hope nobody gets offended by it. But, what do you call a med student that graduated last in his class? A doctor. Okay. So I want them
I
to
see.
know that they have the medical degree in their child. They know their child better than anybody else.
Yes.
And I found for me, and which is what my page is flooded with, is food first autism support. I want them to understand that just like with me, my changes started in my kitchen. And it can start with them. It can start with them as well. And I know it's hard. God know it's hard. And my page will not show my child in the moments of distress, but a vegetable sometimes would take us like 50 times to introduce. And I don't want the parent to get discouraged. You know, everything starts in your home. And I want them to know that. It doesn't start on a social media page. It doesn't start in a supplement. It starts with us, what we do for them, regardless of where you are in life or how, you know, the stage that your child is in, you have control. But in order
Correct.
to accept that, I think that you also have to change your state of mind.
Yeah,
And I want moms to work on themselves too, and understand that, yeah, this is getting hard or this is hard, but let me try again. Because you may try it 10, 20, 30 times and it's failing, but you don't know if number 31 was the success,
it's a success one. Yeah, I
you know.
definitely agree. And I want people to understand one main thing is that for someone who is not going through what you're going through, it's hard for them to understand. They think, well, it's just that easy. Just suck it up and just keep feeding them. But they don't understand the dynamic, what you are doing with, with, am I allowed to say his name?
Yes, of
Yeah.
course.
Okay. With Marcel, um, that dynamic is not easy. It's different when I introduce things to Neve versus because with her it was just suck it up and eat it. With Marcel, it's different. You don't want you do this thing so perfectly that you don't. I don't know. It's just such a different dynamic that I'm always like, maybe I should have done the same thing with Neve instead of being like, suck it up. I should have done that way, that introduction that you're doing with Marcel. So I think it's every time I see you with him and feeding him, I'm always like, should have done that with Neve. I should have done that with my kiddo. Now she's a teenager, so now she's eating things that she shouldn't, like hot fries. But at home, we tried the best that we can. At least on my side, she sees me eating more veggies than her dad, but I like to say that she learns those habits from him. But for someone that doesn't understand and wants to know your story, and this is going to get a little bit more deeper now, just to give you some warning, can
Ugh,
you
okay.
take us back
Mhm.
to the moment that you found out? And I get emotional too. Trust me, writing these questions, Claude, I was like, dude, like, I need you to go deeper. And then I just went deeper and deeper. And then I started crying a little bit. So I'm like, okay, these are the questions. But can you take me back for those that don't understand or mothers that are barely going through this process? How did you feel when you found out that Marcel had autism? What is that? All those feelings, those raw moments, sister. Please tell us.
Okay, so, okay, voice is getting a little shaky. So
I know, me
trying to
too.
keep
I
it
feel
together
it.
because mama don't cry. Mama don't cry. Um, my first thought it was that this has to be a mistake. This was a mistake
Mhm,
because for so long, I was told that everything I was seeing was normal. Okay. Family members shared their stories about, our cousins, our male cousins, on how late they were in meeting their milestones. They would come up with stories like, oh, your cousin so and so didn't talk until like the age of 5. And at this point, Marcel was about 3 years old. Okay. And he
mhm,
wasn't talking. He wasn't talking. Then another story was, oh, so and so wasn't potty trained until the age of like 6. And I was like, oh, wow. Well, boys are really delayed. Like, man, this is going to be hard, But at the same time, these stories, they comforted me. Okay. Because I thought, well, he'll eventually get there. So, but then it wasn't until you and I had this conversation, and you told me about Jenny McCarthy's book, and how she wrote a book about her experiences with her son. And regardless of what people think of her, okay, when I read what she had lived through, I recognized my child to the
Mm,
T. I kept thinking, I'm like, well, that's Marcel. That's happening here. And that's when it finally clicked. You know, the diagnosis was not a mistake. It's there. So now I needed to accept the diagnosis. And it was hard, because I kept on telling myself, what, but this has to be a mistake. I was going back and forth. I was wrestling with that idea for a really long time. So,
of course.
it was really tough. And I felt like I felt like God had confused me with somebody else. And
Mm,
and I didn't grow up dreaming about becoming a mother. You knew that, okay? I always
yeah.
thought I was going to be the
Oh, yeah,
really
you were
cool
playing with
aunt.
the dinosaurs and you were so out of the kitchen. That was me. I was
You
a
know,
kitchen wiping butt, but not you for sure.
no, 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 no. And when you had Neve, like to me, it was like, I'm gonna be the really cool aunt. I want to be there, her everything, like that I wanted that to be my life.
Right,
And
right.
then Marcel happened, and I thought, well, okay, I can do this. You made motherhood look very easy. So I'm like,
Mm,
well, if she can do it, then I can do it too. And then suddenly, I was being handed something that I was completely unequipped for. So the guilt started, and then you hear, all these things about what mothers did wrong and how we are being blamed for our, for the autism that our kids have to carry for the rest of their lives. They blame on what they ate, on what they did, and the vaccine that they took, or whatever it
right.
is. Whatever the compilation of BS that the world tries to give you. You know, and then I started thinking, well, when you hear this constant, criticism that it was your fault, it was your fault, it was your fault. Then eventually I started thinking to myself, well, did I really do this to him? I started doubting myself. And then that
Right.
guilt not only came from strangers or the internet, I even heard it within my own family that
Mm,
maybe this was a punishment from God for the things that I did when I was younger. And
oh,
when you're
it's
already
ugly.
scared and you're searching for explanations,
Yep,
something like that gets inside of you,
for sure.
and so for a very long time, I carried this thought, if somehow this was my fault, I'm going to do everything to fix it.
Mm,
And because my son doesn't need to pay for something that I did in my past.
it's understandable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah,
That had to be heavy, right?
Ooh,
It's
a
completely
little bit.
heavy. I know. I'm so sorry. But one thing that I learned from you is that, like you said, you were going to fix it, right?
Mhm,
And the part of us wants to do that. Like, I don't think, especially after they told you that you're paying for that, that makes
mhm,
anybody want to turn away from God and be like, you know what? You're making my son pay, then I am going to do this. I am going to battle you and I'm going to win. And that is the most normal reaction that I know somebody would have had when someone has said that.
mhm.
100%. But you have grown to be such a wise woman, and not just about life, but about food, nutrition, herbs. I mean, I thought cilantro was just something that gives flavor to food.
A
And
beautiful
now I
garnish.
exactly just, for the tacos and whatever. But now I know all the things, of parasites. So now I'm just like, sometimes I'm eating. And even though cilantro does not go with that, I'll pass by and throw some cilantro in there because I want parasites to be gone. So I learned that so much from you and all these great things that you do for Marcel. I want to ask you, when was that point that you saw, okay, my son is doing good now. I need to turn away from medical profession opinion? Because there had to be a moment when you had to make that decision. That it's not easy. Like you said, we are to believe that the doctors are right and we're forgetting that they're human as well, and they make mistakes, and they're not going to be taught the right thing. When was that moment that you were like, whoa, okay, this click, I need to start doing my own research?
Oh, so I think a lot of it has to do with my personality. Um, I was told at a very young age that I was always very defiant and that, if everybody was going one way, Shakyra was going the other way. So I thought, well, if that is me, then why don't I just continue being me? And, I don't think I was necessarily being difficult. It was just I needed to understand the whys, in
Right.
every situation, in everything. Like I want to understand why this is happening or why is my son, you know, showing particular symptoms or quirks or behaviors. I wanted to know why because I would go to the doctor and the pediatrician would literally just say, "Oh, well, it's part of autism."
Mm.
I'm like, "Well, is there any other answer? Like, really? Like, come on." Oh, Rolo, hi. So,
Ugh. That used to be
so,
her dog, by the way.
so, I never felt comfortable with following what the majority was doing. And in my mind, because I thought, well, if I did this to my son, I'm going to fix it. Then I'm like, okay, I need to start understanding what is happening. What can I do to change things? And if there's one thing that I learned also from, reading Jenny McCarthy's books is that she started with food. And that's where I started too. So the more I was reading about food and nutrition, that led me more to understanding that, you know, that is where that's the starting point. It didn't
Mm.
need to be another supplement because there was another supplement better than the supplement that I got. And then there was a third supplement that was better than the first two that I saw. So I'm like, this is too confusing. Like, I feel like I'm in this, like, I feel like this hamster in the wheel just going and going and going and going. And
Right.
there's like
Insanity,
no
right?
progress. Yeah. And then I look at my kitchen pantry and I have so many bottles of supplements. And I'm like, and none of them are really working. And then I didn't understand, like, well, do I give them together? Do I give them apart? And, then the physicians and his neurologist and everybody else would just like, oh, well, I hear that this is good for a child. Why don't you give them that? And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, so you start trusting that. But,
Right.
the moment that the moment that I stopped and I started asking questions, I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. I
Right.
started reading into nutrition and how there is a relationship, between the gut and the brain. And if you feed it bad food, you're going to feel terrible. So
Right.
how is that any different with a child? So I started changing that. And then I learned about herbs and then I learned about other areas of health. Again, I don't consider myself an expert in the topic. I am an expert in my son.
And your son
So,
too.
and I try to share what I see in him,
Mm-hmm.
with other moms because I
Yeah.
see all these promotions about the next supplement and I give my son magnesium so he can sleep at night. And it's like, well, what did you give him for dinner? You know, but
Right.
that's
Right.
what
Right.
matters. That's what's going to take him through the night because it's biology, and,
When
and
did you
that's how I started
notice?
seeing him.
Do you remember like one time when you can look back and be like,
Hmm.
oh, this is better, or I'm doing good, and that led you? You know what I mean? Like that one
Hmm.
whoa moment. Do
Oh,
you
yes,
remember?
absolutely. When I removed dairy, casein, when I removed his milk, his cheese, when I removed all that, I remember he had explosive diarrhea. And
Before you
that
removed it or after?
before, before, before I
Okay.
removed, before I made any changes at all, the
Hmm.
first change that I did was to remove the milk.
Oh,
He
wow.
was, he was 3.5 and he was still drinking milk. It still gave him milk.
Mm-hmm.
because doctors say, well, is he drinking milk? Yeah, okay, good. Keep on giving him milk. That's for calcium and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, he'll still have milk. And I removed it. And 3 days later, there was no more diarrhea. I was shocked. I even thought, I'm like, oh my God, he's constipated. There's something wrong. And no, there was nothing wrong. The
Wow.
stool was starting to be normal. And another thing that he was doing that the milk was causing to his stomach, it was causing so much inflammation that from pain, he was chewing the drywall off the walls.
Oh,
The
and doctors
corners
couldn't
of the
even, oh man.
the doctor, I remember his pediatrician at that time. She said that some kids just like to do, weird stuff like that, but to keep an eye on him and not to let him do it. And I'm like, but is there anything I can do? You know? And to add to that, when I thought that he was constipated and his bowel was getting regular, there was a period where he did become a bit constipated too because the stomach was going through a shock. And I went to the doctor and she said, oh, give him Miralax. Am I allowed to say that?
Yes.
I don't want to get in trouble.
Yes, you're allowed. No, you're good.
Okay.
Because that's something that it's very, very common. Every time there's an issue, that's the first thing that they said. So you're fine.
So the doctor prescribed him Miralax, and I'm like, okay, well, I gave him Miralax. And then it was just like chaos again. And
Oh,
I'm like, dang, like this doesn't seem right, but the doctor says that I should give it to him. And I'm like, well, I guess I have to continue. But, removing the milk, that's when it hit me like, okay, what else can I remove?
one small
Or
change.
one small change at a time. The kid didn't sleep for 2 nights because he was used to falling asleep with his bottle, you know, and it was hard, but I'm like, I need to try something.
Mm-hmm.
And removing the milk, he stopped having the explosive diarrhea and he stopped chewing my walls.
Wow.
It changed. It completely changed. And then from there, I removed the gluten. And that was really hard, not just on him, but to everybody in the house. Because, we knew that as a family, if we wanted our son to have a healthier life, we needed to change. We needed to do a 360 change.
Right. It
No,
has to be
like,
the whole family. Mm-hmm.
yes. And in my house, like, if my husband would have said, like, oh, well, I'm not going to eat that, I need this, well, then you can go to the restaurant because I ain't cooking twice. Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is what I'm cooking and this is what everybody's eating. And we all got used to it, and then after the gluten, I removed the soy and then I continued doing research because I became really passionate about my son's health, seeing how things were changing, and of course, one question had 5 answers and then I would dig into the five and I learned that doing a low inflammatory diet was really good for him. And I continued seeing changes, especially when I would run the labs for him. And then I would see the
You will
markers,
see all this
how
stuff.
dramatic improvements. I'm like, I'm onto something here. Like, and you know what the funny part is that I would take these results to his new pediatrician and she would tell me, well, I'm not really familiar with these kind of labs.
Mm.
And I'm
It's so
like,
funny
yeah.
that you say that because having Marcel and you doing all these things for Marcel, I'm telling you, it was the whole family. Like we might not, Jonathan and I might not eat always the perfect thing, but I know when we're home, this is what I'm going to feed Neve. Maybe my husband can go eat something else if he wants to. But as far as my daughter, I'm going to give her, the wild rice, put the cilantro in there. Even though she doesn't like it, I still do it. I do that because I learned that from you. So you're just not changing Marcel's, you're changing us as well. And that is, I think
Oh,
that it's so cool. So thank you for doing that. And I listen, sister. I listen every time you're
oh,
like reading an article. I'm like, ooh, what is it? Oh, our book. Ooh, which is it? So I'm very,
oh,
very much grateful for that. So we're going to dig in a little bit more deeper into the faith topic. And I'm going to ask you some true things. And please, as I always say, feel honest and don't feel that you're going to be judged. Somebody judged. We're in our 40s. We don't care no more. But I'm going to ask you, growing up, and I know this answer because we grew up in the same chaotic home, but growing up, how much did faith or God played in your role?
It's actually a little ironic because um, I went to Catholic school most of my life, so God and religion were always around me, you know. And when I was younger, I generally thought that I had a good relationship with God. I believed in Him, I prayed. Faith was just part of my life, and I never really questioned it. And even when our parents divorced, I wasn't angry with God. I knew other kids' parents were divorced too, or they were separated. And I thought, oh, well, this is just something that happens to
Normal,
families, you
right,
know?
right.
And it's like, well, now it's happening to mine. It's not, I didn't blame him for it. But as I got older and more life altering things started to happen, I started asking more questions. Looking back, I sometimes wonder what I had growing up was really a relationship with God, or it was whether just simply religion, because to me at least, there is a difference. So
Right.
I went to Catholic school. I knew the prayers. I knew that I was supposed to believe, and I knew what I was supposed to do. But I don't know that anybody really taught me what it meant to have my own relationship with God. And especially when
Mm-hmm.
life started to just not make sense. So,
Right, right.
so, God has always been part of my life, but I think the understanding of Him was much simpler then, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. But it
Right.
wasn't until later that I really started questioning what I believed, why I believed it, and my kid
Was
is around
this
here, and who actually believed, God was. So,
now, did you started having these questions when Marcel was born, or do you feel that it started happening before that?
um, I think it started when my son was born.
Mm,
Yeah, because even before that, um, my life took quite a few, twists and turns, and I didn't really blame God for it much. Like I thought, well, full transparency, like, I
right,
was divorced before, and I thought, well, it happened to my mom. It happened
right.
to, you know, um, my ex-husband's parents too, and I'm like, well, I guess, it's normal. So I thought, I'm like, well, that's what you do. But it wasn't until my kid was born, and then I do remember that when I learned that I was pregnant, I just thought, like, really? Like, do you really think I'm capable of doing this? Like, this is a lot of work. Like, I don't know if I can do this, but he still, you know, we
He
had
responded to you,
Marcel.
yes, yes, you're capable,
Yeah.
and I'm going to send you a son.
Yes. I think that, and he sent me a son because he knew that I needed a lot of love in my life, like true love, from the one and only little man that I know will never be able to break my heart. But yeah, it was until my son was born and the diagnosis came in. That's when I thought, I'm like, no, it can't be. You had to
And a
mistake me
lot
with
of
somebody else.
people, and a lot of people with the diagnosis that they received,
Mhm.
like you did, get angry. Did that happen to you? Were you angry at God? And how did that anger showed up? Like in what ways?
Oh,
Give us an example.
absolutely. I, with no hesitation, I was very angry. I was very angry at God, with God, because it hurt me deeply. And, you know, to be completely honest with you, I think there's still some anger there. I'm not gonna lie, because for a long time, like I said, like I thought God had me confused with somebody else. Like you have the wrong person, you know. This wasn't supposed to be my life to begin with, but I think one of the hardest parts, one of the moments where anger seeps in is when I see other parents take for granted what their children are doing,
Mm,
and like there are times, and by all means, like I'm not saying that, I don't like to hear, what Neve makes you go through, like, oh,
right.
she stayed up until late and she was texting until, I don't know, past 9 o'clock at night and she got really upset.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I'm like, how can she get upset at that? Like,
Right.
it's, I see things in a different light,
In a different light.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's when I notice that some of the anger starts coming in because I start thinking like, you know, I wish my kid will be able to have, a life like that. And I'll be upset that at 9 at night he's texting his friends,
Yeah.
So those are the little moments, when I see parents that they take for granted the children that they have and the milestones, most
Yeah.
importantly, the milestones that they get to reach that my kid hasn't reached yet at the age that he's at today. So,
Yeah. So for sure. I mean, that anger, I can see it. Um, Especially when I get comments like a couple of days ago. Remember how I had posted a short about an interview I had with a very good, amazing person, Steve.
mhm,
And it was talking about that short, an autistic mom that had sent me a message telling me what sin did she commit or did she do so big? The same thing that you were told that
mm,
her son is paying for it or that she's paying for it. And it really broke my heart because it's an awful thing for someone to feel. It's a very heavy thing, especially and that's when I sent you a message and I said, listen, I wanted to like go off, but I knew you had more knowledge on this matter, and I gave you the questions for you to answer. But I noticed that also there's certain phrases that it's understandably, I understand why you will get upset. Phrases like God gives special children to special parents, or everything happens for a reason. Or when you heard that, when you hear things like that, do you feel that that makes people push more away from God or get closer to God? How does that make you feel?
to me, it actually, and this is
And
from
these are
my
trigger
perspective.
warning. Sorry for the words. I should have given you heads up for this before, but
Yeah, the moment you said God gives special children to special parents. And it's funny that you asked that because last night as I was scrolling through Instagram, I saw this post about it was AI generated and it's Jesus hugging a child, telling him you are perfect the way you are, and it was about autism. And I made you exactly to the T the way you are. And in my head, I'm like, whoever put this together has a very narrow concept of what the spectrum is. Because on our end, the end that we live in and further in, we get forgotten, and the severely autistic, the profound autism, even the moderate, we get forgotten. And the people who have a voice are the ones that are speaking on behalf of us. And it makes me upset, which is why it prompted me to start writing about motherhood and autism, to give a voice, especially to my son. Okay. Especially for those that say that we are trying to fix our children. I'm trying to fix my kid. I don't love my kid. And, that made me really upset because then you hear these comments of God gives special children to special parents or things happen for a reason. Now, I know some people mean well. Okay. I will give them that. and they're trying to comfort you. But it does push me, at least, it does push me away because I think sometimes the people saying it don't really again, they don't understand the spectrum. And there's a part of the spectrum that people don't often get to see, and I feel like me writing it will help shed some light,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I come across a post of other moms that have children with severe or profound autism and
Mm-hmm.
post about their children and they get crap comments of it, like I feel like, oh, hell no. I'm going to step in and I'm going to give you, my 2 cents on the matter, you know, because sometimes, they say this autism community is very, very united, and we're not. We're very divided, and it's about like, oh, who's more autistic, you or me? That's how
Mm-hmm.
it has
Mm-hmm.
come down to. But in any case, I think that for us that are living in the spectrum, autism isn't always a beautiful difference, and it doesn't need to be romanticized. Yes, Papito. Sorry.
You're fine. Oh.
Mhm. Say hi to Tia.
Hi,
Say hi to
baby.
Tia.
Hi, Munchkin. Hi.
What are you
Hi.
gonna? Hmm.
Oh.
Hmm. Hmm. You want to watch a movie? Yes, you can. Go. So,
That is, oh,
uh,
so gorgeous.
so, when people say, say those phrases, I think the first thought also that also comes in is like, I just rather not be special. I
Right.
don't want to be special. I want to be ordinary, and I just want to see my child struggle less, and if I could take autism away from my child, I would in a heartbeat, and
Yeah.
that's one comment that I did post publicly one time, and I got so many lashes back. It's
Mm.
like I still don't care because this is what I think, and I would take it away from him because autism is making his life harder, and it has limited him. It's
It has a
made
lot of
him
challenges.
suffer.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
It does have
exactly,
a lot.
exactly. It has a lot of challenges, and that's the part that people don't understand when they say, well, he's a special child for a special parent. And I'm like, come live in
Yeah.
my house for a day, and then you tell me again, this is a
Yeah.
special child for a special parent. So,
I feel
you
when
know,
people say that, it kind of makes it seem like God meant for a child to have the struggles. And
yes.
it took me a long time to realize that God never wants us to suffer. We come
Hmm.
to this world where basically is run by humans, and a lot of humans have chosen to want to, think what's right, and not what God thinks is right is what they think is right, from vaccination to medication, excuse me, to education. It's always by somebody else's rules. And this world is broken. And unfortunately, a beautiful angel came to this broken world that
Hmm.
society, the decisions that they had made, hurt this child. It wasn't that God sent him broken. God is not going to send him broken. And I think that's just such an awful thing to say because I seen it in you when he hasn't slept for days. And I see you, your face, you're hurting every single possible way, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally. God loves you so much that he doesn't want you to go through that. He will never purposely send you a son for you to struggle as well. He's that loving God. There is no way he meant to do that. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that if you had an advice to give to a mother uh, that is going through the same thing, that had just started this process, I think that, what would you say to that mom?
I think the first thing I would tell her is that you didn't do this to your child. This is definitely, definitely not your fault, and I know our lives can look completely different from, the family around us, our friends, and that can make the journey incredibly lonely. Okay. But You are not powerless.
No.
You have a master's degree in your child. Don't let social media convince you. Don't let social media convince you that, that helping your child has to start with expensive protocols and another supplement or whatever everybody else is doing right now that seems to be trendy. Start with what is already within your control.
Which is
And
food. And yep.
for me, it started in the heart of my home, my kitchen. It started in my kitchen. It started with food. It started with one change, and learn your child, what your child, and build from there. You don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to do everything today, because I certainly did, but just allow yourself to do one thing at a time, enjoy it, and continue building from that, and most importantly, you have to work on yourself too, because this journey requires us to change our state of mind. We need to stop telling
Yeah.
yourself, oh, I can't do this, or my child won't, or this will never happen. Maybe it won't happen today, but that doesn't mean it will never happen,
Yeah. Yeah.
and as far as, as far as God, I want to say that, I'm still trying to figure him out too,
Mm,
and, but I am beginning to believe that maybe we haven't been carrying all this weight alone
mm,
as we thought.
yeah. Yeah. I that actually tells me a lot what your journey is right now. And that it's a beautiful journey. You don't have to have all the answers in this life. I don't think nobody ever gets all the answers unless we're on the other lifetime. But I think the fact that you share that with us, that you are where you are right now at this moment, that is beautiful because that gives inspiration to other people that you don't have to have it all together. Um, you just gotta keep going. That's it. We don't have another
Mhm.
choice but to keep going for our kids and for ourselves. And I'm gonna ask you one heavy question. And I get teary
Really?
every time. One heavy, I know, right? Besides all the other ones.
The other ones were not heavy, they were pretty heavy.
I mean, this one was very heavy. And I think that because it became heavy to me because I had to picture it. And I'm so
Mhm.
visual that I saw the whole thing process, and even just saying it right now, I get emotional. Um, but I want you to take a minute, okay?
Mhm.
And imagine somebody knocks on your door right now, and you
Mhm.
go open the door, and and you open the door and you see God is there. What would you tell him right there and then?
I think I if he's at my door, I
Yeah, and
would
you open the door and you know it's him. You can recognize him that he's there. What is the one thing you would tell him?
well, first I would welcome him inside, you know, have him come in and offer him some coffee.
Mm,
And I think the first thing I would tell him is thank you for everything he has given me, you know, the good and the bad, the good and not so good. I don't want to say bad, but the good and not so good. But I would also ask him a question, do you
of
have
course.
room? Do you have room to carry a little more for me? I think
Mm,
that's what I would ask him.
that's beautiful, sister. That's beautiful. Jesus, sister, you need to stop making me cry. Oh,
uh,
I love it. Thank you, sister, truthfully, to, being here, sharing these raw moments of your journey with your faith, especially with Marcel. Um, and I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us and for making me cry as well. Um, and I know you have things to do. You have homeschool for him, so I'm not going to take any more of your time. But again, thank you, everyone. Go ahead and, I'm going to leave all the links below. Go check it out. Look at her page. Don't forget to subscribe and leave her a comment or anything. And yeah, thank you, sister, for being here. I appreciate it.
Of
Have a wonderful
course.
day. Is there
You
anything that you need
too.
to add that I have not said and you would like to share with the world?
Well, one small thing though, I know that this journey is incredibly hard for us and for all my autism moms and, autism caretakers. Okay. And I know that nutrition is one of the things that it's really, really hard to do. I know it's hard, but you can get there. So for all the parents and caretakers of their autistic kiddos, um, young or adults, whatever it is, if you need help with nutrition, I want you to reach out. And for everybody that has watched this video and also shares this video, will get any of my guides for free. It doesn't matter which one it is. I will give it for free because I want them to also start. I want them to experience what I'm experiencing. And I think there's nothing brings much joy than to see your child eat a plate with broccoli, like a lot of parents want to see that and want to be able to change their diet. And I know you can do it. So for anybody that's watching this video, you will get a free guide. You just need to reach out. Okay.
Yay. And where do they find you, just in case people are driving, which you shouldn't be looking at her page if you're driving, but just in case, can you share where can they find you?
So I think to make things easier in this video, if you are okay with it, you
Yeah.
can just drop a quick word, maybe, I don't know, food. You can just comment food and I will connect with you and then you let me know, who put the comment and I will try and reach out to you directly so I can send you the guide. If you want to check out my page too, is at earnbalancegrow in Instagram. And we can start from there. You can reach out through there too. And I will be more than happy to share that with you.
Perfect. Yay. So everyone, don't forget to go and check her out. Thank you, sister, for being here.
All right, sister. I love you. Okay.
I love you more. Bye, sister.
If this video spoke to you, YouTube picked the next one just for you. It's different for everyone. So go ahead and click right here. Right here. It was made for you.